Hi,
Good morning.
good morning.
Is it all both of us this morning?
Well, we still got 3 whole minutes before we start, and there's no commute.
That's right. Yeah. So,
Sarah,
how are
are
you?
you lying on a heating pad? Are you okay? Hi, Susie.
Hey, how you?
It's all good. How's it going?
It's good. Oh, hi, Sam.
Hey, Samson.
Well, it's for people, but surely we'll get there. Hi, Judy. No, keep getting your breakfast and coffee. I'm just saying hi.
Is that it? Listen.
So far, it's just us guys.
Yeah, we'll get more people.
Yeah.
People RSVP'd for this one, which I'm amazed at. Great.
Don't you have to though to get the link? Oh,
No, it's on our website.
Oh, is it?
Oh.
Okay. That's how much I paid attention. Cool.
And you probably don't go to the website very often. It's just in the e-calendar, in the weekly email.
Yeah, I go to the weekly one. I don't go to the site, but I go to the
Right.
Calendar, yeah.
Yeah.
I think you picked a very interesting and controversial subject this morning.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Got Alon coming in.
There's Sarah.
Mhm.
Oh, good morning, Alon.
Good morning, everybody. How are you this morning?
Morning.
Morning.
All good. How many plaid flannel shirts do you have, Alon? Do you have one for every day of the week?
No,
I was
this
just saying, I think I saw you 3 or 4 times this week, and each one had a different plaid flannel on it.
three. I just got this one yesterday at Target because I didn't have a blue one.
Oh,
Oh,
looks nice.
You know, I
it's
remember
cold. I get so cold.
I remember last week when we did Torah study remotely. I don't remember who it was, and Elon, I'm sure you were one of them. There were 3 people who had a red plaid wool shirt on.
Yes, there were. I don't know if I wore. I know last year, I think we all decided that we were going to come in with our red plaid shirts.
Uh-huh.
And I think most of us came in with them. It's amazing that people have them.
Well, I didn't get the memo and I didn't get the red shirt, so I'll have to go out and enhance my wardrobe.
I guess we'll just go Target, go, or
I'm there.
Costco.
I'm there.
My favorite places for shopping.
There you go.
By the way, how's Bill feeling? I didn't ask you yesterday.
He's fine. He's good.
Good.
He's just a little slower, but no, he had some carpal tunnel surgery and stuff. But otherwise, he's fine.
Good.
Thank you for asking. No heart, no gallbladder, no nothing.
Wait a minute, he doesn't have those, or he doesn't have trouble with those?
Yeah.
He doesn't have the gallbladder. He does have a heart.
Okay, cool.
Hi, Shell.
Really?
Ooh, that's a very nice.
Ellie, you're muted.
How are you, Shelley? Did you go walking this morning?
There we go. Now you're unmuted.
Do I look like I'm nuts? Maybe sometimes, but no, not with all that ice underfoot.
Oh, no, yeah.
You know what? I went out to get my paper and it was like ice. I said, no way. I'm going to take the car to the end of the driveway. It was
idea.
so slippery.
I do that all the time. I pull the car out to the end of the driveway, get out, hold on to the car, pick up my paper, then move back into the garage. And that's what I'm going to do this morning. It's just
Look what
too
happened
icy.
to Ruth Adler. We found out yesterday. She fell on black ice and fractured her elbow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's bad. That's bad. I think that's one of the biggest things that I fear is falling. Because you don't know really how to fall. I mean, Bill once fell and he fell correctly, but then he broke his shoulder.
Like,
So what do we want? What do we want to break more? Our wrist, our elbow, our shoulder? It's so
Wait.
hard.
We just need to go out and
Right.
box wrap.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
You want to
Well-
say good morning? Hello, everybody.
Oh, hi, puppy. What's his or her name?
Sam, and he's about 14 or 15, 14.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but he runs so well. You know,
Cool.
when you, so
Yeah.
it's,
He's beautiful, Aline. If he had, Alana, if he had your color hair, you could almost be twins.
well, I'm still letting it grow out because now she took out all the dye. Now that you want to know, she took out all the dye. So now it's this, but it'll grow hopefully into my black and white hair.
Okay.
Took me 18 months to go from blonde to gray.
Hmm.
White.
it took me
I
about,
cannot imagine you as a blonde.
I'm all a born blonde. Absolutely.
Really?
Been blonde all my life until this.
It's very nice.
It's
And,
nice. The color is nice.
and Alan, how long did it take you to grow yours out?
well, it took me almost overnight before I went from having hair to what I got now. And I think it's an improvement. I don't know about what you guys think, but I'm good with it.
I like it, but does your wife like it?
I'm used to it.
Wait,
And
You're
Barry,
going back.
how about you, Barry?
now Barry and I can relate. We go
There,
in the
there.
shower, we get out, we're wash and wear. In 2 seconds, we're ready to go, right, Barry?
Absolutely.
And
I comb my hair with a washcloth.
You save on shampoo and conditioner.
I have wash and wear too. That's all I do. Get up, wash my hair, towel, dry it, and that's it.
Mm.
Well, it's beautiful, Shelley.
Oh, well, thank you. And I think you're reverting back to your babyhood.
How is that? Oh, because of my kepi?
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay.
I think you weren't born with a
I
I
full
think I
head.
was born with more hair.
I had a full head of hair when I was a baby.
My daughter had hair when she was born.
Mhm.
Beautiful head of hair.
My kids look like the missing link. They were so furry.
Sister, we're gonna give everyone another minute or two. I just sent out a text to everyone who registered, so sorry if I spammed all of you with the link, and see if it gets us any more people.
To tell you how alert and aware I am, I just registered this morning. I never even saw that we had to register.
I mean, you don't have to register. It's really nice if you do because it helps us plan. So thank you, all of you, for registering.
Oh.
Let you know how many bagels.
Choice.
I might have taken home some of yesterday's bagels for breakfast.
Oh.
What did they do with all the bagels that were left over, Rabbi?
We eat them during the week.
Alon, why would you ask such a foolish question?
They get used. They don't go to waste.
Give it away.
Built
after all. Okay, I'm putting in my ears.
Uh,
That's better.
So, Rabbi, did you have to change your program plans because it's remote today?
Well, I was gonna have us run an obstacle course, but I figured not such a good idea in the icy weather.
Okay.
No, today it's just an article discussion, so it's really easy to move that online.
Oh, okay.
And there's the article
Oh.
in the chat, but I'll also share my screen, so don't worry about it.
Oh,
It's just
okay.
if you want to get back to it for later.
If I go to the chat to read the article, I won't get back to you. So I'm
Shelley, one day we're gonna have adult learning that's computers. Just how to use your computer.
I think that's an excellent idea.
We can learn all sorts of Excel equations that make it do math for you. Well, I'll teach you how to do video editing on your computer, Shelley.
Oh, sure you will.
You'll be great.
Yeah, right. I want that first. That's the first class I want to take. Really. Listen, I just got an iPhone, I guess, not an iPhone, I don't know what the heck it is.
Hold
I
it
can
up. Let's see what it
text
is.
You got a
Huh?
Cricket, right?
A Cricket. That's the old people's phone. The Cricket 3, talk into it. It's wonderful.
And you can text now.
I text. Isn't that exciting?
It
is. Uh-huh.
Shelley, can you teach me?
Sure, Alan. Anytime.
Mine talks to me even when I'm not talking to it.
I hope
You're
he's sitting
right.
around and all of a sudden his phone starts talking. I think he's got a friend that I don't know about.
But now you do.
Oh, it's so weird. My Kindle was talking to me the other day. I didn't know it was on. I don't understand when they start talking to you when you haven't asked them to do so.
They're like kids.
I was thinking the same thing.
That's funny.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, you got it.
Speaking of phones, I have no idea what mine is right now. I feel weird. Oh, there it is. Okay, I put it behind the coffee mug. That was a mistake.
Maybe Samson was texting.
Well, I asked him where it is, and he didn't have any information. But let's jump in with a little bit of learning. And so I was perusing the internet, as I tend to do, and came across an article from almost a year ago, right when the vaccines were really starting to come out and be a little bit more accessible to people. And there was the conversation around how are we going to know if someone's been vaccinated, and what does vaccine mean for their ability to access the world, and all of the conversation around vaccine passports. And I think this was when New York was starting to institute the app for the passport, if I'm remembering the timeline correctly. It's very possible I could not be, because time has ceased to matter. But I found it passport from Haaretz, which is an Israeli newspaper for American Jews, mostly, at least where this article came from. They have an Israeli component as well, that was talking about the comparison that some people started to do between vaccine passports and yellow stars of David in Germany in the 1940s. So I have here, I'm going to put like more time in the chat to hang on to later. But what I figured we'd do is read a little bit of the article, have a passionate and loving discussion, but I also have the statement that the United States Holocaust Museum and Memorial, I think it is, not Memorial and Museum, the one in DC through the Smithsonian, their statement before COVID even started to happen on Holocaust comparison, and what that perspective might also be. So before we start looking at the article, thoughts, comments? things that you want to share of your experience?
Yeah, well.
Go
Yeah,
for it, Shelley.
okay, you're talking about the comparison between the vaccine card, I guess it is, the vaccination card, and the yellow star. The yellow star, unless I'm mistaken, was meant just for Jews. They were the only ones that had to wear it, whereas the other is meant for everybody. There's no particular national, religious, whatever group.
Yeah, and the way I understand it is that it's not a comparison, it's not a religious comparison, it's an access to the world comparison. If you were wearing a star, you weren't allowed to shop certain places or go places, you were kind of relegated to the shtetl kind of thing. If you have a passport, or if you don't have a passport, then you couldn't go shopping certain places, you couldn't go out into the world, you were shunned. Alon, yes.
But it is for public health reasons. It is not for exclusivity. I don't, it's not to keep people out so much as it is to allow people to come in a safe way. The Jewish,
And
the
think-
yellow star was not.
And I think what we're going to find is, for those of us who have Holocaust as such a part of our understanding of the world, right? We are clearly studied in Holocaust in various ways, whether academically or through family stories or personal experience, right? That I think there's going to be a cognitive dissonance that we're going to read some of the quotes and hear some of the perspective and go, I don't understand your logic here, which I think is also an important part to kind of acknowledge that we might never really understand the perspective that is being communicated here, and trying to figure out how to talk about it anyway. So Al, I saw your hand, and Jean, I see your physical and digital hand.
Yeah, well, I was going to comment about what Elon said, and I disagree with regard to the exclusivity of the CDC card, because it really truly does exclude people from participating in certain activities. I'm not opposed to that. I support that. But we have to weigh the common good against the negative aspect of excluding people. To me, it's a no-brainer, but I do think that the vaccine passport does create exclusivity.
Yeah, and that there's the intended reason for instituting them, and then there's the secondary effects. So Jean, Judy, and then Roberta, did I see your hand or just a nod?
No, just a nod.
Jean, Judy, Alon.
I can't even see the comparison between a yellow star and a vaccine document. This people who don't want to get vaccinated, that's by choice. That's their choice. In 1939, Jews did not have a choice. Do I want to wear that ugly star or do I not? You were mandated. This is it. You better put one on or you're dead. So I can't even imagine why the Holocaust Museum would even compare the two. I can't, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, and I should have been clear. The museum itself said, don't make the comparison between Holocaust and anything, because there's no comparison. The article that we're going to read is talking about people making that comparison. Judy, Alon, and then we'll look at the article.
Yeah, I think that there isn't, of course, isn't a comparison, but I think the people who have chosen not to have the vaccine, that is their choice. And if they're going to be required not to come into certain places, restaurants, stores, whatever, that's their problem. It's not anyone else's problem. And I think also, as we're getting a little bit more into this, that, and more people still have not joined the vaccine group, I think there's a problem in our society that's going to occur, because I think people are going to be angry. I think they're going to be angry about the fact that we're not getting through this COVID issue very easily, because people are interfering with it by not being vaccinated. And therefore, it's their choice, but it's not for the common good. And I think in our country, we're hoping to have people work toward the common good. And we have a large percentage who are not. So I think, to me, that's a very uncomfortable and unpleasant thing to think about.
Yeah, agreed. And you know, who gets to decide the common good, and how is it enforced? Right? Does common good come from, you know, an internal morality, or can it legalized and you know, have penalties put upon us through government intervention, right? Which I think is part of where this comparison is coming from, is that government putting on restrictions on its citizens rather than the citizens deciding things for themselves. So great. Alon, Roberta, and then we'll get to the art.
But you know, I'm struggling with the exclusivity and government putting on restrictions. People can do it. I mean, they can be part of the exclusive group. Now, exclusivity is a funny kind of word because it excludes, but also it allows. So, you know, you're exclusive. I mean, you know, so it's an open door exclusivity that they can open and close as they choose. So I don't know. It's
Really?
confusing for me. Yeah.
Roberta and Vicky, I see your hand. We might
We'll never get to the article.
Yeah, whatever. With the exclusivity, the difference is when a country club is exclusive, it's up to the members to decide who can join and who can't join. This is not exclusive because anybody can determine their own fate. The same thing with the Holocaust. It was exclusive from the standpoint of the government said, you Jews will wear the yellow star or we're going to kill you, or they're going to kill you anyways. But there was no choice there, you know, it kind of thing. Here there's a choice. But at the same time, I want to look at the schools. For how many years has it been, and I think it's a state regulation, so I can only talk from Illinois because that's what I'm most conversant with. If you want your child to go to school, starting in kindergarten, they have to have had polio shots, this shot, and that shot, and another shot. Well, it's been a long time since there's been a quote unquote mandated shot for children, because I think polio was the last one that was mandated. But here we are with a new generation of disease, and all of a sudden there's a new mandate coming in, but it's really no different than polio or mumps or measles or these other things which we've managed to eradicate through that children.
Yeah, that's been part of the conversation too, is why are you having an issue with this vaccine when everyone who's having an issue with it has already taken their immunizations in order to access public resources?
Exactly.
Right, so yeah, absolutely. Vicky.
It's all right. Way back when I was a child, I remember that if anybody had the measles, they put a sign on the door saying quarantine. Do any of you remember that? I don't think you're old enough, Rabbi.
I remember.
No, I don't think Rabbi is.
And it was a very scary thing, but historically isolating people who've had a disease, particularly going back to the plague years. I'm sure none of you remember being in the plague years when that was the pandemic, or maybe some of you were just really looking good for your age. But there has been this fear of those who are contagious. And with this particular virus, you don't know if they're contagious or not. I mean, people who have no symptoms whatsoever and have been vaccinated are still able to carry and spread the virus and will test positive. So this is kind of a weird thing. And I don't know how many of you remember also, I mean, when I got married, I was told you must have many children to make up for those who were lost in the Holocaust. I don't know if any of you had that experience. I don't know if I failed or succeeded in that.
That's the Orthodox.
That was my Orthodox grandparents told me that they had family that I had to make up for, which is a really creepy thing to think about. So I just named kids for people who were lost in the Holocaust and stopped having babies.
No, it's a message that still exists. I've heard that message. Clearly people aren't waiting until I'm married, but right, like the impact of the Holocaust and the impact on the Jewish community, the size of the Jewish community is still very much a part of our identity, for better or for worse. Like there's a lot of things that we have learned in how to strengthen our community through that trauma, but it's still very, very present, obviously. Judy.
Oh, I was just thinking of why people, and I've read about this, why people do not want to be vaccinated. And I don't know why, if you want to go into this or not, Rabbi, but go ahead, you can respond.
No, it's not really something that I feel like I have the authority to talk about because I'm fully vaccinated and it's hard for me to understand as well.
Yeah, well, I think that there is a portion of our society who does not believe and does not feel secure with the with our government, and consequently they don't trust our government, and many of them have reason. Many classes of people have reason that they do not trust our government, and I think that's a cause, and that's very upsetting. And this is what's happening in our, now in our government in terms of what's happening between groups, etc. But I think of that a lot when we are fortunate. And I do agree that years ago we had our vaccines, we gave our children vaccines. We never questioned that this was not the thing to do because it was for everybody's good health. And our children's, our parents felt for us. And now we don't have that. We don't have that feeling at all. Then people are not thinking about that. They're more thinking about, obviously, about themselves. And unfortunately, they're going to lose out and their children might lose out as well. But that's just one.
Yeah, and I think that kind of passionate individuality, it's become one of the markers of the younger generations, right? Like as a millennial, right, I'm seeing a lot of my kind of younger compatriots and the kids that being individual and celebrating your own extremely unique identity is a huge part of what defines these younger generations. And so there's a distrust of government, but there's also a almost a rebelliousness because sorry, my vacuum's talking to me. There's a rebelliousness because something like the government can try to push people into boxes and kind of counteract that individual identity. And there's an effort to not let that happen. So let's do a little bit of the whatchamacallit, the article. That's the thing. And Interesting. Okay, we're gonna do it like this. Hopefully everyone can see my copy pasted Word document. Yeah,
Yeah.
excellent. So, Roberta, will you read for us just what you can see on the screen?
What I see starts with political activists.
Exactly, that's the beginning of the article.
Oh, okay. Political activists, excuse me for one sec though.
And I can make it larger if you need.
No, it's not that. I want to get rid of the people. How do I get rid of
How do we do that?
You don't.
Get
Yes,
rid
you
of-
can. In the upper
You should
left corner.
see
Okay,
at the top of
Ew.
the,
okay, it's fine. Now I can move it around.
Oh, yeah.
No problem.
How do we get rid of that, Rabbi? The people on the side.
on top of that kind of floating window, you should see 4 buttons. One looks like a waffle, one looks like 2 lines, 1 line, and then kind of a really small one.
Yeah, the small one didn't work, but the single box worked. So I can move the box around. So it's now at the top of the screen and that's fine. Okay. Political activists, including Representative Madison Cawthorn and a member of the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Council, are comparing the idea of vaccine passports to Nazi Germany, with many invoking the yellow stars of David that Nazis forced Jews to wear during the Holocaust. Vaccine passports refer to documentation that would allow those who have been vaccinated against COVID-19 to access public spaces such as gyms, malls, museums, or theaters that would require such proof in the future. The Biden administration is working on creating a vaccine passport system as vaccination numbers ramp up, according to the Washington Post. Israel, which has inoculated the majority of its population of 9 million, has been implementing a vaccine passport system for about a month. Supporters of the idea say it will allow vaccinated people to enjoy a relative return of normalcy while encouraging others to get the vaccine. But some opponents have implied that the idea of opening recreational spaces to those who aren't at risk of COVID is similar to the Nazi persecution Europe's Jews, similar to the Nazis' persecution, I think we're missing an of, Europe's Jews, which culminated in genocide. Now I need you to scroll up.
Yeah, I'm just going to do a little bit more. Here we go.
Okay.
Proposals.
Proposals like those smack of 1940s Nazi Germany. We must make every effort to keep America becoming a show your papers society, said Cawthorn, a freshman Republican congressman from North Carolina, according to Fox News. The Constitution and our founding principles decry this type of totalitarianism. Earlier this year, Cawthorn sparked concern among some Jewish leaders in his district when he tweeted an adaptation of a popular poem about the Holocaust, apparently to advertise his online campaign store. Others tweeted that vaccine passports are comparable to the yellow stars that the Nazis forced Jews to wear in public that were inscribed with the word Jew.
Yeah. So this is just the one example of what some of those tweets and responses to those tweets have looked like. This is a common meme from Inglourious Bastards that the person creating the meme can change the wording on it, and usually it starts with "you're hiding something something something." So you're hiding unvaccinated people under your floorboards again, aren't you? And this is a Nazi hunter asking. And so the ADL starts saying, that don't do this. Even once upon a time, Richard Grinnell said, don't compare the Holocaust to anything. And then now is comparing the Holocaust to something. So there's also oh my goodness, I'm blanking on the word, kind of like a flip-flopping happening, that someone uses the Holocaust to prove their own point, and uses the Holocaust to disprove someone else's point. So let's pause there. Thoughts, comments, unfortunately, no new information in this part of the article. Yeah, great. Roberta, yeah.
Well, the only thing that I can see from this part of the article gets me thinking on a different path, and that's the idea of having to produce a document to go from one place to another. And that is kind of negative to my idea of the United States of America. You know, we've never had to show, aside from a passport to get in and out of the country, we've never had to show real documentation to go in and out of everyday places. And that's where it's different than going to school, I think, when the kids are little with their vaccinations. This is your everyday common areas, the grocery store, you know, the theater, the movies, getting your hair done. I mean,
right. This is in theory anywhere.
Right.
Would require that proof of vaccination, and really limiting someone's ability to access the rest of the world.
Right. And thinking from that standpoint, then I got to stop and think about that a little bit.
But it's not totally excluding people from everything. It's excluding people from going inside something, usually for entertainment, is my understanding. We're looking at movies. Is that not right? Movie theaters, restaurants, blah, 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 blah. I mean, people usually see that as entertainment. We're not saying they can't go shopping for food. We're not saying they have to order food online, unless people who don't believe in the passport feel that this is just the beginning, just the start of something.
Right, like that meme had hashtag slippery slope on it.
Yeah.
And I mean, remember, this article is from the very beginning of the conversation when vaccines were just starting to become a possibility, right? Including the mention that the Biden administration was considering requiring passport. Like, that never happened, partly because of this debate, but for a lot of other reasons too. And even now, Chicago and Cook County and Lake County are working on maybe not a passport, but asking people to show their cards in order to get into certain kinds of establishment, restaurants. I think gyms are a part of it. Things where you would intentionally be taking off your mask in order to do the things of that space. Jean, did I see your hand?
I did have a comment. By now I forgot what it is. I still believe what I believe. How did the passport come to be? Because governments want to make sure that the person who comes into their country has passed a certain qualification. That's a passport. But now we're talking about a passport that can save your life or others.
Right. Vicky.
There's a couple of points. First of all, you do have to show documentation for a lot of strange things. Going into an X-rated movie, you need to show documentation, at least by a driver's license or something, to get on an airplane. You need to show documentation. I mean, for a certain age-related thing, I'm not going to go into any details of my personal history, but I have been
Already did, Vicky.
Are you jealous? But I'm from California. But there are many things that you do have to show documentation. And to get a passport in the United States, so far as I know, all you have to do is send the money. I just had to have mine renewed, and all they wanted was money and time.
No, for your original passport, you have to show like a birth certificate and stuff like that. But once you've got it, then you could just renew it.
The birth certificate is one thing, showing any of my political thoughts, any of my, way back when, and I'm talking in the 60s, 70s, you had to show documentation of a smallpox vaccine. to go anywhere. And I'm serious. And because I remember I had to be revaccinated before my husband and I went to wherever we went to get to be allowed to travel. So this is not something new.
No, it's not new at all. In fact, I have to show proof of all of my immunizations to go volunteer at camp. Right? Camp's not paying me. I'm not a camper living with other kids, but I do have to show a particular health background to prove that I can be in contact with them.
Sure,
And
teachers have to show TB
go ahead,
shot.
Roberta.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I want to add in one of my favorite, I guess, one of the things that I keep coming back to. One of the rules of debate started as a rule of the internet. So the internet has a lot of unwritten rules. One of them by a man named Edwin Godwin. I'm sure I'm saying his name wrong. Who started out talking about a statistical analysis of debates on the internet and saying the longer that they go on, at some point, someone's going to mention the Nazis or Holocaust. It's just a given. And it's been adapted to become an even a named law of the internet and debate that says the person who first mentions or makes a comparison between the Holocaust, the Nazis, Hitler, something like that, in a discussion, does it in order to end the discussion, right? You can't disagree with the Holocaust, right? It's just the Holocaust. Of course, it's evil and it's like pure evil and things like that. And whether they realize it or not, they automatically lose the discussion, right? If the debate is a competition, then the first person to mention the Holocaust loses because the intention is to stop it, and it's like it's the nuclear option. So at the point that this article is coming out and in hours now, for the article, the COVID debate had been going on for about a year. Now, 2 years, just short of 2 years. And honestly, I'm a little amazed it took a year to start talking about the Holocaust. Because according to this rule, the longer it goes on, at some point someone's going to bring it up. Why? And I think that's where my mind often goes is, why are they trying to stop debate? Why are they invoking Godwin's law so that no one else can say anything ever again? They think that they're winning. Turns out maybe not so much. Shelley, you have words that you want to say, and then Barry.
No, I'm not quite sure I understand. What I'm thinking about really that really bothers me is what's happening here in Chicago with the teachers union and the Board of Education. We're all signed to say it's safe for the children to go to school. And the teachers union says, no, it's not safe. Parents are taking sides. I haven't heard anything about the Holocaust in that, but are they going to require children to have vaccination and their cards to get in school? Are the teachers going to do the same thing? I just don't understand this whole thing. I feel so sorry for the children. Children in minority groups have lost a year of school that they will never make up. The children in the wealthier areas will absolutely make those up. If they're going to be out for another year because of this, we're going to lose a whole generation of children.
And my understanding is all of the public schools, regardless of vaccination status, are doing weekly testing still. Right.
But
One of the
rules.
Say that again, Shelley?
But they're not in school. They were out of school all last week, and now they're not going to be going back to school next week either, it looks like.
And It's hard to analyze what's going on when we're still in the middle of it. But I just lost what I was going to say.
But we're not listening to science. Again, we're not listening to science.
In that none of us, except for a couple people, are experts in science. And none of us are truly scientific experts in COVID, right? We are citizens of the world. We are decision makers. We are people who have our own access to power. But we're not actually experts. We're relying on experts to inform us. And sometimes that information conflicts as well, or it's not a clear message.
About science. The real science people admit they don't know everything about this. And so when someone tells you this is exactly what it is, be very, very suspicious.
Yeah.
Because they're learning moment by moment what's going on. And that's why they have to keep changing what's going on. And people don't like that. They want something solid. They don't want the ladder they're climbing to have missing rungs.
So, Barry, you've been very patient.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to briefly mention one thing with the national passport. Immunization requirements are determined by the state, not by the federal government. And that is probably the argument at the Supreme Court, which is why they're going to throw out Biden's executive order, because it is state mandated. It is not federally mandated. In fact, as of 8 years ago, there were only 2 states in the country that had no exemptions for immunizations except for medical exemptions. Those 2 states, in case anybody's interested, were West Virginia and Mississippi. There are exemptions in Illinois. You can have a personal exemption for immunizations in the state of Illinois.
Right, we are fully admitting we are generalizing a lot of things, which makes it easier to understand and talk about, but also starts to lack some of that nuance that becomes really important in each person's individual experience of it. And that's also where the debate is happening, is on the general level. So let's add a little bit more to this article. We're going to jump a little bit, and then we're gonna. This is now the article's kind of analysis of what's happening. You leaned in nice and close. Will you read for us?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
The trend is the latest instance of people, generally, but not only on the political right, equating public health mandates they don't like to the Holocaust, a practice that anti-Semitism watchdogs and Holocaust scholars have repeatedly condemned. In the past, anti-lockdown activists have compared COVID-related public health restrictions to the Holocaust. In 2019, before the pandemic, some anti-vaccine activists compared themselves to Jews suffering under the Nazis, also by appropriating yellow stars. To compare COVID-19 rules to the slaughter of millions in the Holocaust is disgusting, wrong, and has no place in our society, Anti-Defamation League CEO Jonathan Greenblatt tweeted last year. On Tuesday, the ADL and others noted that in 2019, Grinnell tweeted, "Never compare the Holocaust to anything, ever." At that time, Grinnell was referring to a Holocaust comparison coming mostly from the political left that gained prominence when Democratic Rep. Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez called immigrant detention camps on the southern border concentration camps and invoked the phrase, "never again," terms most commonly associated with the Holocaust.
And we're just going to get to the very end of the article. Keep going. Following.
Cortez statements, several Jewish organizations either urged caution in using Holocaust analogies or came out against the comparison. Others, mostly on the left, endorsed the New York lawmakers' words. Some of the cautioning groups, including the ADL, have also come out against other comparisons of Trump or his policies to Nazis or the Holocaust. The U.S. Holocaust Memorial and Museum said in a statement that week that it rejects efforts to create analogies between the Holocaust and other events, whether historical or contemporary.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So we can keep going in the debate of, you know, are vaccine passports really comparable to SARS? And, you know, is the reaction to COVID-19 comparable to the Holocaust? And without having to each of us actually say the words, I can guess where we all land in those debates. But I think one of the questions that the kind of unwritten subliminal question going on here is why the Holocaust as a comparison? What's the goal of using that example in a debate? And seeing that it's not just a right-wing thing or a left-wing thing. It can be a political thing, mostly in a extremely passionate disagreement with institutionalized power, whether it's AOC against Trump or the right-wing representative against Biden. Like, what's the point? What are people trying to do? Maybe even without realizing they're doing it, but why use the Holocaust in a debate?
Question.
Vicky, Al, and then Alon.
Well, one thing I have to sort of clear in my head is the word Holocaust. To me, when I'm thinking of the Holocaust, it has a capital H, but a lowercase h Holocaust is a different, to me, picture. Yet you think of the Cambodian Holocaust. You think of what is now apparently occurring with the Kurds and other groups. These are in their own right a Holocaust. But in my mind, in my heart, in my emotions, in my history, if it has a capital H, it only means one thing. And that is that I'm damn lucky that I wasn't there.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. Al, and then Alon. Thank you, Vicky.
You were asking about why the Holocaust reference. I think, excuse me, I think people use the Holocaust reference because it inflames passion, one side or the other, and it's a political football. And I think that just like the vaccine issue has become politicized. And I think that's consistent with people who raise the Holocaust in this kind of an argument.
Yeah, and I'd even add to inflame already inflamed passions. I like anything political already starts at like a very high emotional level, and then it just kind of ratchets up exponentially. And this is part of that process of making it more and more and more intense. Yeah, a lot.
Basically what Alan said, and I would just add that it's divisive or divisive, which however we pronounce that word. And I think that there is a core population that is very much into divisiveness within the United States. I do. But that's my own political belief.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think that we all have had the experience over the last two years, maybe a little bit more, that there seems to be no more common ground in our country, whether with where we get our information from, the people that we associate with, the ideologies that we act upon, right? Like everyone seems to be very, very much in their corner and unwilling to kind of peek their head around the wall to even guess what else is out there. And I think that that's been something that we've been struggling with a lot in COVID era. because a lot of non-COVID things have also happened during this time, particularly things around racism and anti-Semitism and all the isms that encourage that divisiveness. That's its own divisiveness, its pronunciation. But yeah, and when we talk about all of the mental health and anxiety that's kind of happening in the world right now, I think a lot of it comes from that. Yes, this isolation and the never knowing what tomorrow's going to bring is a huge part of that. But I also think that the new reality that there's nothing that you can say that's not going to have an explosive reaction in the world is also really, really hard. And you either have to encourage the explosion and say it anyway, or you have to like shut up and be in the corner. Shelley, you're reacting, go for it.
Well, I remember there was a time when you said, what Vicky was saying really brought things to a head for me. There was a time when you would mention the word Holocaust with a capital H. It was unthinkable that anything like that could have ever happened. The whole world had that notion. As you say, Vicky, there have been so many more Holocausts that word is almost becoming, I don't know if it's a password, a byword, something, but nobody has learned anything, it seems like, because all of these people are being killed. There are Holocausts everywhere you look. And I don't know that this COVID isn't something on that order too. With certain people are able to get vaccinated, others aren't able to get vaccinated. There aren't enough vaccines around. There is such a divisiveness, and I think it's awful. This is for everybody's health, everybody's well-being. This is how we get back to what is so-called normal. And there are people who just won't go along with it. I don't know where this is going. I really don't. I'm just at a loss. And yeah, the isolation is really terrible, and especially for children. That's who really worries me more than anything else. These wonderful little children and what's going to happen to them and to their generation. This is all personal, so.
It is, and I fully acknowledge that the article and topic I chose makes all of this extremely personal and makes our conversation not necessarily a comfortable conversation. Our anxiety levels are probably a little bit higher than they were an hour ago. And hopefully, speaking on behalf of Temple Jeremiah, hopefully we can find places to have those anxiety-provoking conversations in safe and healthy ways that lets us be able to immunize ourselves to that anxiety, to be able to learn, to continue learning those like tools and tips to help us deal with the anxiety and the isolation and all of the like stomach knotting stuff, because it's everywhere. And we can be really lucky to have a place that lets us be like that and express it without feeling ostracized as well. Hopefully everyone gets their own to have that. My experience with Jeremiah is it lets us. I hope that's other people's experience. But I'm noting the time, and I want to make sure that we can get to this statement from the Holocaust that's from 2018. So nothing COVID related. I think it's in response to some of the immigrant camps that were being set up, particularly on the border, but it doesn't reference it specifically. And I'm also thinking, Shelley, what you were talking about, that we are unlearned in the things of the world, that has an impact on the comparisons that we make. We're just going to read the very end of the statement in the link that I provided. It has the whole statement, but we're just going to read the last three little paragraphs. Jean, will you read for us, starting with quality Holocaust?
Well, quality Holocaust education may have the potential to bring some of the divides our nation is experiencing. It enables people to pause, to step away from the problems and debates of the present, to be challenged by this at the personal level. All promote self-reflection and critical thinking about the world and one's own roles and responsibility. That engagement is lost when we resort to grossly simplified Holocaust analogies, and it demeans the memory of the dead. Writing in 1953, the British novelist L.P. Hartley said, "The past is a foreign country. They do things differently there," comparing and categorizing the natural human impulses. We all use categories and analogies to navigate through life, but the nature of Nazi crimes demands that we study the evidence, alert ourselves to warning signs, wrestle with the world's moral failure. When we reduce it to the flattened morality tale, we forfeit the chance to learn from the horrific specificity. We lose sight of the ordinary human choices that made genocide possible.
Great,
Careless
Great, thank you. One more paragraph.
Careless Holocaust analogies may demonstrate, demean, and intimidate their targets, but there's a cost for all of us because they distract from the real issues challenging our society, because they shut down for productive, thoughtful discourse. At a time when our country needs dialogue more than ever, it is especially dangerous to exploit the memory of the Holocaust as a rhetorical cudgel. We owe this observation more than that. And we owe, and I'm done here, I don't have it.
We owe ourselves more than that.
We owe ourselves more than that, correct.
So I love that sentence. There's a cost for all of us because it distracts from the real issues challenging our society, because it shuts down productive, thoughtful discourse. I think that's what each of us in our own way has been saying, that we found that it becomes not only hard, but almost impossible to have that conversation. That the comparisons of a vaccine passport to a Star of David sewn on our clothing, or the comparisons of big political personalities to Hitler, or of entire political parties to the Nazis. There might be something in there that feels vaguely parallel, but calling out that parallel stops the ability to have the conversation. And it's not the first time that I've heard someone saying Holocaust education teaches us more than just about history. right? It teaches us about sometimes the worst instincts of humanity and society, but it also teaches us about how to have that reflective process on present day events that hopefully help us build a more better world, a better world, in our own actions, and as we encourage our various structures and societies. You know, when I was in rabbinical school, I did a trip to Berlin right before going on a Passover trip to Crimea. And one of the things that we did was hear from average German citizens about what Holocaust education in Germany, how they're teaching themselves about their own national past. And one of the things that I found most interesting is that there's never a that was them and this is us, right? That was what they did back in the 30s and 40s, and now we're a totally different country. There's a true ownership of that narrative and that potential in German history and in the way that they educate every single one of their kids, and saying this is what we need to do and this is what we're fighting against when we try to consider what Germany's going to look like next 10, 20, 30 years. That's what we're fighting against, and we can't let that happen again. And so, you know, are we going to get to the point where we look at this and really be able to educate honestly about what's happening, about the divisiveness, about the like just petty name calling that we do, about the making imperfect comparisons that help us find more people that are like us rather than help us have conversations with people who aren't like us. You know, what's going to be the legacy of this? And if we're going to make the Holocaust, maybe that's the comparison that we need to make. Not the passports, not the stars, not the, you know, putting thousands and millions of people into truly horrific situations that ends up in genocide. Hopefully we can stop things before we ever get. But maybe the legacy of Holocaust in this moment is more about the way that we look back at this moment and teach ourselves about this moment. And it's going to require a whole lot of honesty and a lot of normalizing discomfort, because nothing about right now is comfortable, but it is important. And so, you know, if only we can use this moment for the better. So I've kept you longer than I was supposed to.
No.
But it's cold and icy and no one's going anywhere. So I want to give each of us a chance to do our own last reflections if there's anything that's kind of bubbling to the top. But if you have to go, I totally understand and thank you. Jean, and then Al.
3 years ago, my son and I went to Poland. And we took a very lovely tour of all of Poland, starting from Warsaw all the way to the South Poland. And we had a wonderful guide. And at the end of the tour, he said to us, we Polish people know that we are being blamed for a lot of the Holocaust problems. But he says, we will never, ever admit to that. It is never going to say, we're never going to say, oh, okay, yeah, we made mistakes. He says, never. This is not the way we're going to do it. And I found that very sad because having come from Poland, and my parents are came from Poland, I was always brought up as a little child saying my father, who he was a gentle giant, a gentleman, said, the Polish people were so terrible to the Jews in Poland, especially in eastern part of Poland. They did not have an education. They wouldn't let them own properties. They were the scum of the earth. And fast forward many years later, I said, Daddy, Sam and I want to go to Poland. And he says, I'm going to lay right in front of the airplane. You're not going to Poland. You're not going to step foot in that country. Knowing what you know, what I know, what I told you. So there it is. That's the truth.
Yeah, and fighting against an ever-present trauma, it's virtually impossible, right? And so many survivors and children of survivors are constantly fighting against that trauma and the narrative that was left in the countries that Jews barely exist in anymore. So I think yours and your son's and your dad's experience are very, unfortunately, universal, but very true. That it's really, really hard, and we haven't made it past the effects of the Holocaust. Al.
I just wanted to thank everybody for participating in what is a very passionate and emotional discussion, and hearing everybody's views on this in a respectful way, I think was very interesting. So I just thank everybody for participating.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Alan.
Alon.
I think a lot of this, and I mentioned this yesterday in Torah study, I think a lot of this is generated through fear. Jean, your father was fearful for you. I mean, he was just so fearful, I think. My mother never allowed me to wear a Jewish star when I was younger because of her fear. And I grew up in New York, which has a pretty sizable, yes, Rabbi, Jewish population. So when you ask what our reaction is, or my reaction is today, my blood pressure's all the way up again. No, it raises my blood pressure. It gets me, but I think a lot of it is fear, fear of what's going to happen to us, fear if I take a vaccine, fear if they don't take a vaccine, so I think we have to try and level that out a little bit. But Alan, I agree with you. I think we're all very respectful of each other and enjoy being together. Yeah.
So just a couple plugs for things that are coming up. Friday night is Shabbat Shirah with the choir and everything, and the music of Stephen Sondheim. And then a week from today, next weekend is many things all at once. It's Shabbat Shirah, it's Shabbat and Martin Luther weekend all at once. So next Sunday is a Tu B'Shvat Seder, which is the holiday of the trees and other things that grow in Judaism. So you can all feel free to participate without ever having to ingest something to eat something in public. There will be all sorts of ways to celebrate. And then the week after, particularly talking about everyone's blood pressure being up, is Mental Health Weekend. So Friday night is Mental Health Shabbat, when we'll have a visitor from JCFS, which we have an ongoing partnership with, and our new liaison, Janet Ogren, is going to come and spend some time with us. And then adult learning will be from 2 social workers through JCFS, 3 social workers, talking about how adults in any capacity, parent, child, invested, loving one, can help children through the trauma of COVID in the last few years. So all of those will be multi-access, online and in person, unless you hear otherwise. But right now the plan is to be extremely multi-access. And let me know if you have any questions or anything like that. A lot
Rabbi,
question.
yeah, just can you tell me about your class that you're holding over at another synagogue? It's a
So next week I have Intro to Judaism begins. Sarah, is that a question? Excellent. Okay. So it's really honestly, all of you are, you know, you're at the 201 stage, not the 101 stage. At the minimum. This is for often it's considered for people who are considering conversion, but it's also for non-Jewish members of Jewish families, or what I like to call Jew-curious people. Conversion is not the ultimate goal of this class. But what makes this class special is it's done in partnership with 4 other synagogues in the North Shore. So it hopefully gives the students a taste of different ways to be Jewish in this area, at least. So that begins on Wednesday. If you know of anyone who might be interested, registration's still open. And yeah. Awesome. Great. No lasting questions? If there is, you know where to find me. I don't go anywhere. Got the cell phone all day. Excellent. Well, running with me. Thank you for having an open conversation. And until next time and next conversation, stay warm and stay safe. Don't slip on any ice, please.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you so much,
Bye.
Rabbi.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, all of you.
Or not?
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Everybody. Stay